Andy, you're inheriting where Chuck's brought us. You're seeing the next thing. It'd be nice, I think, for people to kind of hear as the handoff goes, you're expecting things to happen that you won't be totally in charge of, but you'll be supportive of. You're going to have to not depend on him and follow God and go. So I think it'd be neat to carry that to the next level. But maybe first, what was that book that you've told me a couple of times kind of helped you as you were guiding other organizations might value knowing that?
Yeah, it's a good book. It's called Succession, and I wish I'd have found it when I started the succession process. It wasn't available at the time. It's a more recent publication. But when I saw it, I immediately grabbed it because I'm human. I wanted to go back and double check what someone else said to make sure I hadn't missed something important in our succession plan. And I was very encouraged. We were actually pretty much had all the boxes checked, and I learned a couple things to kind of improve. So, but it's a good book because it's looked at succession planning not only from churches but from large organizations and what they did wrong, what they did right, and some key things that need to be in place for succession to be successful. And so I recommend that book. It's a good one.
Let's switch gears a minute. I really think there's a lot of people at Crossroads that are curious about your story, and I hope we've gotten enough of it out, and hopefully it'll lead people to call you and talk and email, hear more, because it's a fascinating story of convergence. You're following and listening to God, you in the context of a church that's ready to have a positive transition and just keep going. Let's talk about how our people experience it, the staff, the elders, the congregation. We have 10 venues, so there's a lot of different sort of pockets within here.
To me, I'm excited because I spent the summer really praying over this very thing, because to me, if I was somebody watching this from our own congregation or from outside, the first question I would ask the upcoming senior pastor is, well, hey, what are you going to do?
Hey, Andy, I want to ask you a really important question. What are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. And so what's happening and where we're going to go? And so I spent the summer praying over that intensely, and by fall, I had a really good God moment where it just really spelled it out. I knew it was from God. It was bathed in prayer, and here's the beautiful thing. It's not anything outside of beyond what we're doing. It's about connecting, growing, serving, praying, giving. It's about transforming the triangle in the world. It's just doing it together and maybe a little bit more streamlined. And so right now, we're in the process right now. Once again, go back to the whole health, is let's just streamline together. Let's all speak the same language. Not that we weren't, but whenever there's transitions, vision leak is real. So it's really neat how God is just realigning our vision, make sure there's no leaks, make sure we're streamlined, make sure we're saying the same things, we're growing and learning together, and that's where we are, and that's where we're going to go. So it really is honoring the past and just pushing it forward, and of course God's going to do new things in the future, and we're going to be obedient and listen to that.
Well, as a sideliner, I get the backroom look at this, and I get to be out in the sanctuary and watch people's reaction to it. It's been a joy, and Chuck, I know you have an authenticity that people just love here. The things you've shared about some of your own dark past that God healed you of, and you would be willing to risk that in the pulpit. Almost no one does that. People love you for that, and yet you've been the pot of familia here, but you're honoring God, but you're going to hand this off. You're managing people's expectations, feelings, attachments. Talk a little bit about what that's like, and you're also trying to bless this guy. The thing I love is Chuck feels our best years are ahead. I mean, what leader who's given almost 25 years to a church says, our best years are ahead because I'm going to move out the way?
Yeah, I really do believe our best days are ahead, and I'm really excited about what God's going to do through Andy and where he's going to take us. I'm looking forward to being a part of it. We have the kind of relationship where when I hand the baton, my wife and I are going to take 2 or 3 months, and we're going to relax, we're going to catch our breath, we're going to go around the community, but we're coming back here, we're going to be sitting in the pews cheering him on. This is our home. We've grown up here. Honestly, this is really the only church I've really ever known. I was at another church briefly right after I got saved. This is my church. And so I'm blessed to be able to come to a place where I know I can live and grow. My kids grew up here. Eventually we'll have grandkids, Lord willing, and I'll be able to bring my grandkids here, and I'll be able to say, listen to what Andy's saying. Listen to Pastor Andy. That'll be an awesome thing for me. So I'm excited about that. I really am, because the vision doesn't change. And I told Andy when we started this process, I said, one of my goals is that I do this in such a way that honors God and blesses the church, obviously, but that you get an example of how to do it when you've got to do it. Because from the beginning, I wanted to be thinking, you know what, in a few years, it'll go really fast. You're going to be going, gosh, I need to start setting up my succession plan. I need to have the next guy in line. I need to, and we want to set the stage so that the younger generation doesn't have to leave the church to start the new wineskin that God is doing. And
can I say something I know you know about, but our audience might not? Chuck and I have both come from bad transition places. Let's just be honest about it.
Yeah.
And when we came here, Chuck, and I've been close from the start. You did singles, I did adult ministry and small groups, so we just hit it off from the jump. And one of the things we discovered was, and I remember us saying many times, let's never let that happen at Crossroads.
Right.
Let's figure out how to make a good transition. And Chuck, here it is, it's happening.
I know, it's crazy.
And I say that because sometimes our pains and our wounds have a redemptive outcome. There's a time and a chance where God gives us a chance, not to be perfect, but to say, when I have the opportunity, I want to get it right, Lord. And you've done a lot in the 24 years, and the last 16 years, to be in a place to do this well. And that's why we wanted to share this story in this video. I mean, we hear it from what Andy's feeling. Tell us maybe some things you've heard from our people.
I would love to answer that question. I've heard some great things, but I want to share it in the context of a little more specific how for guys who might be thinking about entering into a succession process. One of the things we need to realize is that, God has to get us there first. And then we have to get our key leadership team there. And then we have to get the whole congregation there. And we have to give the people the time they need to get their mind and then their heart and then their will around the changes in the process. And when we get there, we're tendency to just, but we have to be patient. And that's the hardest part, to be patient for other people to catch up and let God speak to them. And so the process, for the last several years, I've had lots of conversations, I have with you, with every single staff person, the senior leadership team, about Andy, about the future. How do you feel? What are your fears? Because everybody has fears. And what's interesting is most people are saying things like, well, do you think he'll want me to stay?
Yeah.
I love it here. And without any hesitation, I said, of course he wants you to stay.
And this is the first time in my life I'm saluting a younger guy.
I'm actually a little younger.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Don't make me forget.
You just have more gray hair, so I think you're old.
I know, really. No kidding. But I think it's important, and I've had those conversations with elders and with key leaders, and you have to be patient while they articulate fears, and because they have a lot of bad experiences from the past too, not only from church but from professional world. Mm-hmm. And so all these things start to surface, and you've got to let them talk through that and let it settle out and not see it as a threat to your plan. Which is the tendency. We tend to think, well, you're arguing with the plan. No, they're just processing, and that's very important. And it's hard. It's a little tiring. I'll admit that. Again, I'm an introvert, and so it's like a lot of counseling. But it wasn't because people were against it. It's because they needed to get their mind and then their heart and then their will around it. And what I saw over time was each person would kind of go, well, it makes sense. I'm just going to miss you. Then next time I'd be talking, they'd be saying, it makes sense and I'm going to miss you, but wow, he's really good. I really had this great encounter with Andy. I'm really seeing this in him. And so their heart started being able to grab a hold of Andy as it was letting go of me. You got to remember, that's an important process. It's really important.
You dedicated my kids. You married me 20 years ago, and that's emotion. They're never going to let go of the fact that you did a funeral for their mom or whatever, and yet you're giving the key spiritual leadership to another guy that's going to have to feed them till we bury them.
That's correct. So the process, it has to involve, for years, even before we announced that I was stepping down in 16 months, he had been sharing the pulpit with me. We were switching. I'd go to the Wake Forest campus, and he would be here at least once a month. So people were seeing him, and I was being seen at the other campus physically. And so they heard him and they realized, wow, he's a good preacher and he's a good leader and he seems to understand our vision. He connects with me and I connect with him. And so those are the kind of comments I hear, not only from our congregation, but from our leaders, is I respect Andy. He's a good leader. He's a good communicator. He's a great preacher. I believe he's got passion and he has good ideas. And I was very inspired when he spoke and when we met and talked. That's the kind of stuff that is required for people to follow.
And this kind of brings us back to the beginning when you realize this is a long horizon plan, and then now you're talking about the horizon people need after we heard your guys' horizon. I would say as an observer too, one of the things I've appreciated is that you're allowing that time. A lot of organizations, and you've been in them, I've been in them, they just want to hurry up and get it done. Yeah. We don't value the emotional side of church, of relationships, of business or whatever. And I would say you don't have to be a big church. You did something when you were doing the video, and then we realized, this isn't working for the invitation, and Andy needs to preach.
Right.
I mean, how many people are willing to say, here's my notes, go preach. Hey, you write the sermon, I'll preach your notes. I mean, there are a few places in the country, probably not enough, that are doing that. I've been blessed by that, because I would go 8:30 and hear Andy, and I'd sneak down here and I'd hear you at 11, and I'd teach a class in between, and I'm just going, this is really cool. And I think our people have realized it's not necessarily the personality delivering it,
Right.
but it's a constant, truthful message that's going to go out. And I think even smaller churches could imitate shared, mutual, gifted leadership.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Andy, have you got any closing remarks? Let me ask you for maybe some closing remarks, and then I have some closing thoughts I want to share with our audience.
First off, thanks for doing this, and I so appreciate those of you that are watching this, and really hope that this is helpful. I think, kind of just in closing from me, is it's a process. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes honor, maturity, leadership. And I think that when you can go, as Chuck just said wonderfully, you got to go slow enough for the people to gather around, because sometimes we just think of it from the staff side of things. There's a lot of people that move into our area. I mean, Raleigh's a great area. It's one of the top capitals to live in the country. And so there's people moving in here all the time. And so they're coming in with history of churches. They're coming in with transitions that have gone good or bad. And the one thing that I've heard over and over again is, like we said, man, we love Chuck, but this is a great process.
Right.
We love Chuck, we're going to miss him, but this is a great process. And so I think my closing remarks is let the process happen. Don't rush it. Too often, the senior pastor's like, you know what, I think I'm done. So see you later and good luck. And the church, falls apart for months and months until they gather together. And then it's a year to 2 years before it's back to being healthy.
Momentum is lost.
Yeah.
Wounds unnecessarily inflicted, and the enemy wins, and the church sort of gets a black eye.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens because of situations, but whenever possible, whenever the process can happen, as Chuck said, it's already now ingrained in me that, I'm 41. I got X number of years that are in me to be a senior pastor. I need to be thinking, how do I now do this when it's time for me? And I got a great example now for how to do this in a healthy, right way. And so that's my encouragement to everybody watching.
Thanks, Andy. And just as a colleague and a friend, it's been a joy having sit through a lot of these rough ones. I got to tell you, better is better.
Yeah.
Two things. I had the privilege of a wonderful experience about 2 weeks ago, I guess it was now. I was sitting in our senior staff meeting, which he's been leading since right before the end of last year. And by design, because the senior staff needed to get used to him truly leading, even before I'm gone. And I was watching the senior staff have a great time in the meeting, not only relationally, but they were talking through good things, they were visioning, they were excited, and I was sitting back observing this thing going, yes, this is exactly what you want.
His success is no slap on you.
Oh, no, we had times like that with me too. Mm-hmm. But think of the guys who do what Andy said a while ago, time to go, and they just bolt, and then all their life's work crumbles apart because they wouldn't take the responsibility to be a leader to the end.
A good steward.
And I'm going to have the opportunity to hand the baton, and I don't have to worry about what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. It's going to be phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's going to be better than when I had stewardship of this church. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. And I truly do believe that, Andy. I've told you this before. What a great, why would anyone not want to finish that way?
Yeah.
And to ride off into the sunset, so to speak, knowing
it's in good hands.
It's in great hands.
Well, thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and with some of the other things on our training center, I hope you can see that you don't have to be perfect to be effective and faithful. Failure's okay. Transitions take time. Leadership is a journey and a stewardship. And the best transitions come from leaders who understand those things. And I want you to know we didn't always know that. The three of us have been through the bad. God graciously has taught us better, and we've been able to navigate it better. And you know something? We can't keep it to ourselves. That's why it's here to share with you. And if we can be of any help to you, providing resources, we'd be glad to do that. But thanks for listening to this story about how to have a good top leadership transition.